Getting a compact car for the price of a subcompact sedan already sounds like a compelling proposition. But with the GAC GA4, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The GAC GA4 may have the price tag of a subcompact, but it's actually a compact car. And that makes it significantly bigger than most of its competitors or cars within the same price bracket. And some may say that size doesn't really matter, but it's hard to deny that bigger cars usually offer more space and, generally speaking, better ride comfort. Now, you may think that GAC managed to pull that off by scrimping on performance and features, but that couldn't be further from the truth because, as you'll see on this video, this thing is loaded. And it's not just loaded for its price point. This thing is loaded, period. So starting with the front, you get projector-type halogen headlights, LED DRLs, and LED fog lamps. And look, underneath the emblem, you get a camera. More on that later. So naturally, this car is bigger than subcompact cars, but it's also longer than a lot of compact cars. In fact, I had this car washed today, and that probably explains why it's raining. But the point I'm trying to make is they charged me the same rate as a Toyota Camry. So that says a lot about this car's size. Now, you also get a fastback design, so it really makes the car look a lot more expensive than it actually is. You also get power folding side mirrors and these gorgeous 17-inch wheels that are wrapped in 205 50 series tires. Now, the character lines are really simple, but I don't think it makes the car look bland. If anything, I think it even makes the car look a bit more premium. Now, I have to say that the rear end is probably my least favorite part of the car. Now, it doesn't look too bad, but I don't think that the taillights blend in nicely with the rest of the car. But at least they are LED taillights, and I do like the fact that the exhaust pipes are concealed to give it a cleaner look. Now, opening this trunk reveals 480 liters of space, and that's huge, even for a compact car. And if you need more space, you can always fold the rear seats down. Now, let's go check out the rest of the interior before it really starts to pour. Man, if you thought the exterior was good, then this interior really knocks it out of the park. It doesn't even feel like you're sitting in a compact car. This feels more like a mid-size sedan. The materials used here are plush. There's soft touch leather on the dash with stitching, and this brown and cream combo has Tito vibes written all over it, but I'm digging it. I really am digging it. You also get leather on the seats and on the sidings, so all touch points are extremely soft. Now, the seats are a bit firm, but they're still quite comfortable. There's hardly any bolstering, but that means that it'll suit a variety of body types. And it's also power adjustable. Now, the steering wheel is leather wrapped, and it does feel kind of hard. And the thing is, it only adjusts for tilt, and unfortunately, it does not telescope. But nonetheless, you still get a pretty good driving position. You also get buttons for your cruise control and audio on the steering wheel, which makes operating this a lot easier. The instrument cluster is mostly analog, but you do get a colored multi-information display in the middle, which displays useful information such as your average speed, temp, a voltage meter, distance to empty, and fuel mileage, as well as a tire pressure monitoring system. Moving on to the infotainment system, it's nicely integrated, and you do get physical buttons, which makes operating it a lot easier, especially while driving. Now, it doesn't have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but you do get a top view camera, which works pretty well. And that explains the camera I showed you up front. You can also use this to configure various car settings, such as how weighted you want the steering wheel to be, amongst other useful things. But like I said earlier, this thing isn't only loaded for its price point, it's loaded period, because you get so many niceties, such as automatic climate controls, which uses these physical buttons and switches, which makes operating it a breeze. You also get push button start, an electronic park brake, and an auto dimming mirror. And to really seal the deal, you also get the sunroof, which really makes this interior feel upscale. But the biggest advantage of this car over a subcompact is the space you get at the back. But it's not just roomy against subcompact cars. This is roomy even compared to its compact car counterparts. There's just so much space back there. Legroom is more than adequate. Now, headroom is a bit tight, but at least my head does not brush against the headliner, although I'm not the tallest person on the planet. The rear seats are kind of firm, but they're still quite comfortable, and the fact that you can really stretch out means that your underthighs are firmly planted on the seat bottoms. You also get a lot of amenities back there, such as a center armrest with cup holders, rear air vents, and a charge port. So this definitely exceeds expectations, but I think it's time to see how well it drives. Okay, so we already know that you're getting a bigger car than what you would typically get for the same kind of money. And then stepping into this interior, we're blown away by just how gorgeous it is, not to mention all the features you get at such an affordable price point. So at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, so what's the catch? Is it in the way it drives? Well, I can tell you right now that there's no catch. In fact, this thing is one of the best driving compact sedans out there, because in terms of refinement and performance, this thing can compete with the best driving sedans there are out there. Okay, so let's dissect that a bit, because nothing about this car feels low rent. So the engine does vibrate a bit when you're idle, but overall the experience is extremely satisfying because it's a quiet cabin. You don't hear the engine, the NVH is really good, and there are no creaks and rattles. And to think that this car has about 22,000 kilometers on the clock. So that really says a lot. Let's talk about the steering. And at first I thought it felt too light or somewhat disconnected. And then I remembered that this actually has various steering modes. So when you engage sport mode, it actually starts to provide really good feedback and is weighted really nicely. Plus, the ratio is also pretty responsive. So under the hood of the GAC GA4, you get a 1.3-liter turbocharged engine, which puts out 134 horsepower and 202 Newton meters of torque. The best part is peak torque is delivered around 1,500 RPM, so it always feels light on its feet. Now there is a slight bit of turbo lag below the 1,500 mark, but it's totally fine. And when you put it on sport mode, it kind of mitigates that. Now mated to the engine is a 6-speed conventional automatic transmission, and I must say that it shifts very smoothly and it doesn't gear hunt. Now let's see how quick this thing responds when you want to get it to downshift. So I'm gonna cruise slowly around 20 kilometers an hour, and then I'm gonna floor it. And you can see the downshift is almost instantaneous. So it is tuned pretty well. So just to try to give you guys a better idea of how this thing performs, I'm going to do a short acceleration run, followed by a sharp U-turn at the end of this road. So here we go. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but this thing is quick. It's quite brisk, and it also handles extremely well. Feels so planted, and more importantly, you feel in absolute control of the vehicle. It's actually pretty fun to drive. So this is definitely not just the type of vehicle that'll take you from point A to point B. If you want something a bit more than that, and you don't want to think of driving as a chore, then this will be able to satisfy your needs. So this is definitely not just some grocery getter that's designed to get you from point A to point B. It does more than that. This can even appeal to a spirited driver. It has the goods. Now, typical with all GAC vehicles, there are various drive modes you can choose from to really suit your driving style. There's eco mode if you want to be frugal, there's normal mode, and of course there's sport mode if you want to do some spirited driving. And it does a really good job in changing how the throttle and the shift mapping responds to your inputs. But what really impresses me about the way this thing drives is the suspension and how it balances comfort and driving dynamics. Because you can take this thing around a corner and it feels so planted and it grips really, really well. Yet the ride isn't overly stiff. It's not jarring. It's also extremely comfortable. And we can attribute that to the fully independent suspension this car has. You get a multi-link suspension at the back as opposed to torsion beam suspensions, which is really common for cars at this price point. So this is the kind of car that doesn't only please the driver, it pleases all its occupants. Because aside from the superior ride, there's also heaps of space. You know, it's really mind-blowing how GAC was able to give you so much for so little. But what's even more mind-blowing is why I don't see enough of these on our roads, which is rather sad because it only means that a lot of people are missing out. This is something that you should really consider if you're in the market for a subcompact or even a compact sedan. Because despite its price, this can really compete with the big boys. The GAC GA4 can be yours for 1,066,000 pesos, which again puts it in the same price bracket as some top-of-the-line subcompact cars. But it's not just the size. This car exceeds expectations in terms of performance and features. And I'm willing to say that it's the best way you can spend that kind of money on a sedan.